Hello and welcome to our class tonight. Tonight we're going to be working on Utah law, a couple of different concepts: broker management, and also property management. So let's just head right into it. For those of you that might be tuning into our YouTube channel and you live in other states, well, you're welcome to sit through this. It's fantastic, but please understand that these laws are particular to the state of Utah. So if you were looking for more of a general concept, most of the time when you take the exam in various states like Massachusetts, Florida, California, and whatnot, what happens is they have a national section, which is the same for pretty much every state. And then they have a state or a portion of the test that is just for their state laws. So this one is for the Utah people. Welcome to class. So we're going to go through some questions. Let's just start right in with the first one. With us tonight, of course, is Dan Naylor, the owner of our school instructor extraordinaire. So let's start with number one. If a brokerage closes, I mean the firm closes, the sales organization closes and ceases to do business, the broker must notify the Division of Real Estate within blank number of days of where the records will be stored. And it's 5, 10, 15, or 20. What do you guys think? Well, you're popping up here. Let's go with 10. B, that is a correct answer. Most of you already knew that. Now, B is 10 days, and that's, of course, this is a Utah state rule. But it's 10 days for most notifications. You change your name, you change your personal address, you change brokerages. And in this case, this brokerage closed. The broker has to let the division know where they could come and look at those records if they need to within 10 days. 10 days. Number two, brokers have another responsibility, and that is to keep track of all the transactions they've done, but not in perpetuity. They have to keep it for a number of years. Record of transactions must be kept for blank calendar years. And the correct answer to this one, it's not 2, it's not 4, it is not 5. The correct answer is B, 3 years. Now, it's 3 full calendar years following the year of the transaction. So if you have some transactions that closed in the early part of the year, let's say January 15th or February 15th, right in there, you have to keep that one until the close of that first year, and then it's 3 full calendar years, 3 full calendar years after the year of the transaction. So you could have some transactions, if you're a broker, that you're keeping for 37 months, which is 3 full calendar years plus a month, or you may have some you're keeping for almost 4 years, but the rule says 3 full calendar years following the year of the transaction. Question number 3, we have a principal broker and they're responsible for the accuracy of what? Seller disclosures, homeowner's insurance, settlement statement, agent's home address. Well, brokers probably do have an accurate record of your agent's home address, but that's not really what the division is focusing on here. The rule says that a broker is responsible for the accuracy of the settlement statement. The settlement statement. Seller disclosures, that's something that the sellers themselves fill out. Homeowners insurance, well, that's another whole license discipline in our state of Utah with the insurance department. It's the settlement statement that the brokers are responsible for. Now, many brokers don't really see these until after the transaction, but if they review them and find a mistake, then they've got to set in motion a series of events, of course, which will get those corrected. Number 4, if a principal broker changes their license to inactive status, what happens to all the agents that are affiliated with them? Well, agents, whether they're associate brokers or whether they're just sales licenses, they have to be attached by the umbilical cord to a broker. And if you don't have that attachment, well, then you're in trouble. So if your principal broker, for whatever reasons, decides to go inactive, what happens to your license if you're an agent with that company? And the correct answer to this one, of course, is A. They're automatically changed to inactive status. Now, there's no taint on your license other than the fact that you can't do real estate anymore. I mean, not right now because you don't have an active license. B, are changed to inactive status after 30 days? No, it's inactive. The day that your broker decided to go inactive, not tell you. Now, most brokers, I'm sure, would tell you that what's happening so you could go affiliate with another company. Are unaffected? No, you have to have a broker. Or D, are automatically revoked. Revocation is it's a nasty thing. It's where the commissioners have decided you did something really bad and they are revoking your license. Just because your broker decided to go inactive is not a problem for that. However, if you continued to sell real estate and you didn't have a principal broker, then they're going to come after you because you can't do real estate on an inactive license. So if your broker goes inactive, you're automatically put inactive and you don't have a license that's active and you can't go out and do real estate. You've got to find another broker to affiliate with. Of course, if you're an associate broker, you could open your own company, which is one of the advantages of having a broker's license. Okay, let's look at number, but even though you've been acting as a sales agent. If you're just a sales agent with sales agent status, you can't open your own company, unless you could find someone to be the broker for you. Number 5, please. W has a broker's license, but they're not acting as a branch broker or a principal broker. They're known as I just mentioned it in the previous question. Are you inactive? No, you're out selling real estate. B, an associate broker. Hang on to that one. That's warm and fuzzy. C, a sales agent broker. No. Or a pending broker. No. I mean, the correct answer, of course, as you're well aware, is you would be B, an associate broker. And really, it doesn't really give you any extra advantage other than the fact you probably understand the rules a little bit better because you've been through 2 educational experiences and 2 different exams. But it does give you the advantage where you could be a branch broker or branch manager, or you could be a principal broker if you wanted to. You could just start your own company. I highly recommend it. Most people in Utah that are licensed have sales agent licenses, and there's not as many brokers as you might think, but I think it's something that's a natural progression in the business and it's something that you ought to do. And of course, we want you to come back to our school. Number 6. A broker may only put earnest money in an interest-bearing trust account when. Now, the key here is that interest-bearing part of this, okay? So let's look at our answers. A, get written permission from the buyer. B, get written permission from the seller. C, specify who will collect the interest on the money. Or D, all the above. Now, rarely will you ever see a question that's quite like this. This is the D, all above, because this was put in here for a learning experience. D is a correct answer because A is correct. You have to get written permission from the buyer and, of course, from the seller, because both could be affected. Both could be affected. Trust accounts normally are non-interest bearing, but if you have a large amount of earnest money, it would have to be fairly significant amount of earnest money to really amount to much. If with the extremely low interest rates that are paid on savings accounts these days, or checking accounts that do pay interest these days, if you can find one, it would have to be a lot of money. But we've dealt with earnest monies of $50,000, $100,000, particularly on large transactions, and if that's going to sit there for a few months, particularly on a complicated commercial deal, it really may not make sense. But you got to get everyone, the buyer and the sellers, those two's permission. And if there's multiple buyers, multiple sellers, everybody has to sign on. And then you have to specify who collects the interest. And so they're all correct. Let's look at number 7, please. Emma's a sales agent, and they obtain an offer on Friday before the Monday Labor Day holiday. The offer is accepted Saturday morning. How many days does M have to deposit the earnest money? Now, M has to get that money to your broker, of course. But when does that clock start? Well, the clock starts when it's what? Accepted. So we have a rule in the rule is A, 3 banking days according to the law. Now, calendar days, whether it's 5 or 7, the law actually says banking. So that's the trick there. And D, well, that's not right because it's short a day. It's 3 banking days, or as otherwise agreed to between the parties. Now, in our state right now, we have a real estate purchase contract, which many of you should really get familiar with before you walk into that test. And the law actually says that it's 3 banking days according, or it just says it's 3 banking days according to law, or as otherwise agreed to between the parties. Well, the real estate purchase contract says that once the broker has obtained the money, it's printed in the contract that it's going to be 4 days. Well, that's different. Yes, it is, but it's also okay. Why? Because it is an agreement between the parties. It could be 10 days. It could be a month. But the printed REPSI we are currently using for residential real estate in Utah right now says 4 calendar days. Okay, so that's what it is. But according to law, it's 3 banking days. It's not a conflict there because it's 3 banking days according to the law, or as otherwise agreed to between the parties. Number 8. A lot of the stuff in Utah law, you either know it or you don't. And you can pass a national exam and fail the Utah law, which just means you've got to come back and take the test over again. However, since you pass the national portion of the exam, you only have to take the Utah law. So, I say, well, you're halfway there. But the most important thing is the fact that you're halfway there. So don't beat yourself up too much. I know it is a multiple choice test, and I know you only need a C minus 70%, but a lot of our really successful agents in our business that I've known over the last 44 years or so, they're just not very good at testing, and so that's why a lot of them shy away from coming back to school and getting their broker's license. But you can do this. You can do this, and these reviews will help you. And we have many other test aids that Dan has put together and done a fantastic job of doing that, which will help you as well. On to number 8. Which of the following statements is correct regarding the necessity of establishing a separate property management account? As you know, brokerages must have a trust account. But brokerages that do both sales and property management, there's a cutoff there where it becomes a necessity for them to have 2 different accounts. In other words, you can do some property management, but not tons of property management, unless, so let's look at our answers. So what we want to know is which of the following statements are correct? There is no requirement, no such requirement. Well, guys, that's interesting because that's kind of a negative. Look at B, when the brokerage is handling 6 property management accounts. C, when the brokerage has 7 property management accounts. Or D, when the brokerage begins to do property management in addition to sales. Now, this is what some agents would say, or potential agents would say, well, that was a real tricky question. And it is a tricky question because it has kind of it starts you off in one direction and then it says, well, which one of these is correct? Okay. So which of the following statement is correct regarding the necessity of establishing a property management account? Okay. If a broker decides they're in sales and then they decide they want to open a property management division, they don't have to have a separate property management account. They can run those property management, those first accounts that they get through their normal account. So there is no requirement, which is the correct answer, A. 8 is A, okay. When the brokerage is handling 6 property management accounts, well, that's just incorrect. When a brokerage has 7 property management accounts, that is the cutoff. When you have over 7, then you have to have a property management account. However, a separate property management account. However, this says when you first decided you wanted to do that, establishing a separate property management company. So if you get over 7, then you got to have it. But when you started, you didn't have to have it. Or D, when the brokerage beginners do property management, that's not correct, right? So it is tricky, but the trick here is to not just to know it's 7, but to know that from the beginning, they don't have to have it. So yeah, I know, but you can miss a few of these if you had to, but this one I don't want you to miss. So pay attention. Number 9, trust funds that become commissions through what? Through the closing statement. Okay. Now, let's talk about this. We're looking for a correct answer here. Are they exempt from commingling rules? Trust funds that are put in your trust account that become commissions through closing statement are exempt from commingling rules. Well, heavens no. You're never exempt from commingling rules. Okay. B, must be removed from the trust account within 60 days. C, can be paid directly to the agents. D, can be used to pay business expenses from the trust account. Okay. The trust account is set up to put funds in it that belong to other people. Do you think, look at D, do you think you could use those to pay, like your rent on your office space, or to pay to have the copy machine fixed? Probably not, because it's not your what? It's not your money. You put monies into trust accounts that don't belong to the brokerage or to the agents, because at the time they're put into the trust account, that money is really the buyer's. He's saying, look, I'm earnest, and here's my earnest money. I'm serious about this, and I'm putting some money up. However, I've got some opportunities to get out of this deal if the property doesn't check out, and some other different things if I don't like the loan, and and whatever. There are ways to get that back. So the correct answer to number 9, my friends, is B, must be removed from the trust account within 90 days. Now, what happens at the closing is, it told you in the stem of the question, mysteriously at the closing, what the title company does is, let's say the commission was $40,000. It's a really nice commercial deal, and the earnest money was $10,000. Okay. When that deal actually closes, the buyer performed, the seller performed, and it's put in the public record, it has closed. Okay. The title company is not going to cut you a check for the $43,000 commission and say, now bring in your check for that $10,000 out of your trust account, because the title company is worried that, well, wait a minute, that $10,000 check might bounce, and I've already given you the $43,000, so now I got to go collect that $10,000 because you've screwed up my books, and and I don't want to be out of pocket $10,000. So what happens is that money, they will cut you a commission check for your $43,000 commission minus the amount of money in the trust account that you've already collected. And so that money mysteriously becomes yours. But the division will really be at odds with you and probably fine a broker, and might even do some more serious problems with them if they pay expenses out of that trust account. So the correct procedure is for the broker to take the $10,000 that became a commission when the property closed and move that into their general operating account and whatnot. Okay. And generally they don't pay a commission ever out of a trust account either. They pay that all as out of their general operating account. So the money is moved from the trust account to the general operating account. And that's what you got to know for the test. Now, in the real world of real estate, a lot of brokers aren't even using their trust account. They have to have one, but they're not using it. They're telling your agents that they want you to use the earnest money held by a title company addendum form and have the title company hold the earnest money. In which case, the broker doesn't even have the earnest money in their trust account. It's over at the title company. So, but that's just a practical thing. This is the question you might see when you're facing that computer on the multiple choice test that allows you to get your license. Okay. You don't pay office expenses out of a trust account. You move that into your general operating account, and then you pay the expenses of running that business. Number 10. A dispute has arisen between a buyer and a seller on the distribution of earnest money in the broker's trust account. Neither side will agree to allow the other to receive the money. So now what happens? Okay, well, eventually this should be interpleaded in a court of law. In other words, a broker will go to the judge and file a suit and say that these people can't decide who gets the earnest money. So, Your Honor, you have to decide, and you take it to court. It's called an interpleader action. But what if that doesn't happen? I mean, there are situations where, particularly the buyers, I mean, you know, the seller is easier. I mean, the sellers, they own a property, okay? But the buyers might fly into town. They might try to buy a house, whatever, a building, and then they disappear, and you can't even find them anymore. You know, maybe they went back to where they were from. Maybe they moved somewhere else. And maybe the earnest money was only $1,500 or $2,000 or something. And, you know, maybe that wasn't a big deal to them. And you can't get a hold of them. And you can't, you know, you can interplead it into court, and then the court would have to decide what to do. But the answer for the exam here, we have three choices. We have after 5 years, if no agreement has been reached, the money must be turned over to the state treasurer as abandoned property. And that's the correct answer here. We have a 5-year period of time. Both parties must arbitrate the dispute. The problem is you can't find both parties. I mean, one of them's just disappeared. Now, you know, a couple of grand, you know, they may not disappear for that, but $500, you know, with money being worth less every single day, you know, $500 may not be that big a deal to someone, and they may just disappear, and it's hard to get a hold of them. So if you've turned it over to the court will turn it over to the state treasurer's office. But if you don't turn it over to the court, and you just, you know, it's just in your brokerage account, and they come auditing, they find that, you know, it's been there, you know, over 5 years, or that's not how you should handle it. It should have been turned over to the state treasurer. The broker must determine who the rightful owner of the funds are. Well, sometimes, you know, that's difficult to do, or some brokers, maybe they were both had a problem. And so, you know, both the buyer and the seller, you know, defaulted one way or another. So, you know, these are situations that might happen. But on the test, after 5 years, this is always true. After 5 years, if no agreement has been reached, the money must be returned to the state treasurer's office as abandoned properties. Number 11, please. Brokerage QRS makes a deal with the builder, and they set up a branch office at the construction site. A great opportunity for agents to sit open houses. You know, it can be there 3 or 4 to 5 days a week sometimes, or over the weekend or whatever, which is true. Okay, A is true. They will not need to register the branch office with the division if they'll be there less than 12 months. Now, if they're going to be there for longer than 12 months, then they have to set up a regular branch office. And you know, I've seen it happen both ways, where, you know, brokers say, well, we're only going to be out there 6 or 8 months. You know, we've only got a half a dozen condos to sell, and I'm sure we'll blow through them that quickly. And they sell them all out in 4 or 5 months or whatever. Or I've also seen subdivisions where they, you know, they take a garage in one of the model homes and they really trick it out nice. And, you know, because they've got 200 homes to sell, and they're obviously, they feel like they're going to be there more than 12 months. And in that case, if they have agents that are working out of there exclusively and whatnot, then what they've really done is they've opened a branch office. And so the division wants you to register that with them. Their branch must share a name of the construction company? No. The new branch cannot be open for more than 3 months? No. The branch broker assigned to the new branch must also be a general contractor? No. So I don't know. The big thing on having a branch office is you have to have an associate broker who's now designated as the branch manager. Or perhaps, the broker might run more than one office with some of the current rules that we have today. Let's look at number 12, please. You must be licensed to represent others in the sale of real estate. Always, never, if there's compensation involved, and if you're not related to them. Okay, all right. So this one, number 12, if there's compensation involved. Now, does that get you out of your fiduciary responsibility if there's no compensation? No, you could be what's called a gratuitous agent and still be held to a very high standard by the Division of Real Estate. But you must be licensed to represent others if there's compensation involved. Okay. Dan, could you do number 12 real quick? I've got a problem here I got to deal with real quick.
Sure thing. So number 12 says you must be licensed to represent others in the sale of real estate. And the question is, why do you need to have a license if you're helping somebody? So you can help people in real estate transactions, like a friend, if a friend's asking you for advice, or if they want you to help them look at contracts and things, you can ask anybody for free advice like that if you want to. But the question here that we're trying to look at is, at what point does the law require that you have a license in order to represent somebody? And there's kind of a trigger term here that we're looking for. There's kind of a trigger aspect of this relationship that you create with somebody that triggers the need for you to have a license. So let's look at some of these answers. So it says always, and well, just the way I've been kind of discussing it, you can help somebody without a license as a friend or as a neighbor if they ask you to. Now, obviously, if you ask your neighbor for advice and you're asking questions about contracts or something like that, and they're not an attorney, then the advice they give you is only going to be worth as much as, their expertise in the area, right? You don't just go asking people for like legal advice, right? You would want to get someone who's a legal attorney, who's a licensed practicing lawyer or something to give you advice in that sort of situation. So here, what we're looking at is in real estate. Of course, you want to go ask somebody who knows about this sort of thing. But you don't always have to be licensed to help somebody else in real estate. Never? Well, that's obviously wrong. Sometimes you do need a license. So the question right here, number or letter C, this is the trigger area we were looking for. If there is compensation involved. So if you're representing somebody and they're paying you to represent them, that's the trigger. If they're paying you to help them, then the law says you have to have a real estate license. And they put that in place because they want you to be competent. They want you to take care of the client. They want to make sure that if someone's paying you for this kind of assistance with a transaction, most real estate transactions are very high dollar value. Even residential transactions are worth, right, $400, $700 million. So there's very high value contracts that people are dealing with in real estate. So the division wants to make sure that anybody who's getting paid to help somebody or to represent them in these transactions has a certain level of expertise, a certain level of competency, and that's what the licensing process is all about. So letter C, if there's compensation involved, that's when you have to be licensed in order to represent others in a real estate transaction. The last one, D, if you're not related to them, well, related to them or not, that's not anything to do with the licensure. That's even if you are related to somebody, if you're representing them for a fee, you still have to be a licensed real estate agent. There you go.
Thank you very much for filling in there, Dan. Zoom calls are great, but sometimes, people have, I'm doing this from home, and we had a little emergency there. Number 13, please. Great explanation, number 12. Thank you very much. Which of the following activities would require the person to have a real estate license for property management activities? Okay, property management activities. A, Mary is collecting rents for her widowed mother who just pays her a token $25. Okay, all right. Now we're looking for things that would require a person to have a real estate license for property management activities. Okay. does the amount of money that you're being paid, is that the determining factor? Or if you are paid, is that the determining factor, regardless of what the amount of money is? Look at B. Q is renting empty units, collecting rents, and handling maintenance in return for reduced rent. That is one of the exact exemptions for not needing a license. If you are an on-site manager and you're doing these things, renting empty units, collecting rents, and handling maintenance in return for reduced rent, you don't need a license. Okay. C, L collects rents from a triplex next door for his good buddy, and there is no compensation. So even if the compensation is like $25, okay, well, but there is no compensation. D, so that's okay. J is the secretary of a property management company and occasionally shows an empty apartment. Now, in renting apartments, sometimes you'll go out and there'll be a person there and they'll take you through and show you around and whatnot. And they're only working for maybe a dentist who owns the whole apartment building or something. And they're paid at a wage. And in this case, they're secretary of a property management company, but they're an employee who's actually working for a wage. Well, if that's the situation, they don't need a license either. So the only one who really needs a license here is Mary, even though she's only being paid $25. So that's not going to hack it. So A is the correct answer. Mary, sorry, you should have had a license, but it's only $25. Well, still need a license. Okay, number 14, please. R is an employee working for WXY Corporation. They're an employee. R's responsibility included managing property owned by WXY. Which is true? Does R need a license or do they not need a license? Okay, that's A and B. C, it's illegal. Or D, R must be an attorney. Okay, well, you could throw those last two out. I mean, do they need a license or not? And the correct answer is, guys, they don't need a license. Why? Well, because they're an employee working for the corporation. Now, this is real clear because WXY is an entity. It's just one entity. And they can own several different properties, okay? And that's okay. But you're an employee, you're working there as an employee. You can't be paid commissions, cannot be paid commissions, right? Or you cannot be paid bonuses based on productivity or the fact that, you got it rented fast or whatever, because that looks a whole lot like a commission, okay? Being an attorney, well, attorneys can't do this kind of work for you. They can prepare documents. I mean, that's what attorneys do and whatnot. But if attorneys want to do real estate activities, we have a special provision for them in our state where they can go and test without taking a lot of hours or any hours because they have a law license. But most of them do come through class anyway, just because it helps them get through the exam. But if you have a law license, you could very easily get a real estate license just by going in and getting a C- on the two portions of the test. 14, R does not need a real estate license, okay? Because they're an employee of a corporation. Now, if R works for let's say a dental or a medical group, and the doctors, be they dentists or medical doctors or whatever kind of doctors they are, I mean, chiropractors love real estate too. And each of the chiropractors owns their own pieces of property, and this person that works for them as their office manager or whatever, you can't work for 4 or 5 different owners without getting a real estate license, but you can work for one. Okay, and that's what WXY is. It's one. It's a legal entity, and the properties are all owned by WXY as well. Okay. But if you had, Dr. Smith and Dr. Brown and Dr. Vanilla, that's not going to work. you know, there are each of them, oh, you're such a good manager, why don't you do this for me too? Then you're going to have to get a real estate license. 15, please. A principal broker who wants to do both real estate and property management, can he do that from the same office? Must do so from a separate office? That's, you know, diametrically opposed there. Must have 2 separate licenses? May not do so at all. Well, obviously a principal broker can do sales and property management. You're a broker, you can do both. But the correct answer, so that you know, eliminates a D for sure. But the correct answer to 15, my friends, is A. You may do so from the same office. And it's a very common, even though that property management business might be quite substantial. You know, you might be doing 100 properties for 100 different owners. But you don't have to be in a different physical location. You can be all in the same physical location. Number 16, please. All right, if an owner and a principal broker of Jones Real Estate Company decides to open a separate property management company, which does not apply. Okay, there must first be more than 6 property management accounts. Well, how can you get 6 property management accounts in order to open a separate property management company? Well, you know, that, yeah, you might want to open it and then go out and get some accounts, but I guess you could get them as just for Jones Real Estate Company. But if you want to open a separate one, there is that is not the right answer. Okay, or is it? There must first be more than what? 6 properties, because if they have 7, they have to, right? So the correct answer is A, because that does not apply. Now, can a name be different? Oh, absolutely. C, the broker can manage both companies. Sure, absolutely. Could it be called Jones Property Management Company, which is real similar to Jones Real Estate Company? Sure. All those are okay. The only one that we could give any heartburn is there must first be more than 6. Okay, but that one doesn't apply. You can open it up and not have any, and just you have to open it up and start running and then go get your 6 if you wanted to. Number 17, which of the following events require notification to the Division of Real Estate through RELMS, which is our online license management system that we have at the division? But which of the following events requires notification? Well, A, agent moves from another branch office to another branch office of the brokerage. And so a broker can have as many branch offices as, you know, I mean, they can have a number of branch offices if they want to. They could be in various cities, you know, they could be in different boards of realtors. But if you have an agent that you know their main office is in Salt Lake, and then they want to work out of Park City, or they want to work out of St. George, then the division needs to know who's responsible for you. And now it might be the same broker, or it might be a branch manager but in addition to your broker who's also responsible for you. But let's look at B. Okay, the agent transfers from a brokerage branch office to a property management office. Let's talk about that. Working out of Park City, working out of St. George. If your license is good for the entire state. So that means your broker's license, that the broker you're working for, is good for the entire state as well. Now, the different areas of activity in our state, a lot of them don't get this confused. Don't let this confuse you, but a lot of them have a different, what we call board of realtors, and they have a different MLS. Now, along the Wasatch Front, you know, we have the Ogden board, the Provo board, and the Salt Lake board, which all own our MLS system. Those 3 boards own our MLS system. And we also have a Wasatch group as well. But it's the 3 largest boards in our market area own the MLS. So that makes it easy for you to have an MLS key and access to the MLS. And you could easily sell a property in Santaquin, or you could easily sell a property, as far north, maybe as, Upper Ogden or whatever, or in that area, and that would be fine, even though you're in a different board of realtors. But some board of realtors have their own MLS. Park City, for example, has a different MLS system. And because you are an agent in Salt Lake City, doesn't mean you have access to that MLS system. So don't confuse the fact that, yes, you have a state license, you can go anywhere in the state and sell whatever you want, with the fact that you may or may not get as much cooperation as you think you should have. The best way, if you want to sell properties out of your MLS system, you go down from Salt Lake to St. George to do that, or for you leave here and go up to Park City, is to work directly with the listing agent and the listing brokerage. And they're pretty much are happy to have you sell their property, but that may not always be the case. Look at C, the agent moves from one team to another team within the brokerage. Well, that's the same brokerage. Not a big problem there. And look at D, the agent is assigned as a designated agent for a group of listings within the brokerage. Okay, we want you to go and market this subdivision. Okay, well, that's the same brokerage. So the C and D is pretty much the same thing, isn't it? And A is not that big of a problem either if it's the same brokerage. The problem is you change. Look at number 17. The answer is B as in boy. Look at this one. The agent transfers from a brokerage branch office to another type of discipline, the property management office, which we would assume this particular brokerage has that split into 2 licenses, one for the brokerage and one for the management. So that would be a situation that would require you to let the division know that you've actually switched from essentially the property management, from the brokerage side to the property management side. Okay. On the brokerage side, you could do some management and brokerage at the same time. But if you're going to be in the property management entirely, it's that the division doesn't like that. So in order to maintain the greatest flexibility, you might just want to stay in the brokerage side with your license. But if you're going to transfer and that's all you're doing now is property management, guys, then B is the correct answer. You got to stick with that one. Number 18, please. An unlicensed assistant may perform all the following tasks except. Now, what's the key here? This word unlicensed should just blatantly, flash right at you. You have an unlicensed assistant. Now, unlicensed assistants can do some task. That's what this question's all about. Could they go out and obtain public records? Sure. Could they deliver documents? Absolutely. Could they call prospective clients for an appointment? Now that one's more on the solicitation side, okay? But look at the last one, manage keys, including making copies. Well, sure, that you're just running down to the hardware store and getting some copies made. What they could not do is call prospective clients looking for appointments. See, so C is the correct answer here. The whole idea behind licensing is not to protect your commission, not to provide you with a lucrative career. The whole idea of licensing is that we want to protect the public. The state feels, and as Dan was saying earlier when I stepped out for a moment, is that it is so important. This is such an impacting situation and could be tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars at play here. If not millions of dollars, then the state wants you to have a certain amount of competency, and that's why they require education and licensing. So not only do they want you to be brought up to a certain standard to protect the public, but they also want the right to come in and monitor your performance to make sure you are doing that. So an unlicensed person can't call prospective clients because these prospective clients may have questions that shouldn't really be answered by a person who doesn't have the right to answer those questions by the fact they have a state license. Okay. Okay, as always, we thank you for being here. Appreciate your interest and your comments. Folks, please call the school. We have a lot of things that can help you to get through the exam. And if you have questions about what we just talked about tonight or any other questions that I can help you with personally, you're welcome to call me. Dan, you can throw up my number if you'd like. This school we're very proud of our pass rate in the fact that we keep our information current. Appreciate you being here tonight, folks. Let us help you. Let us help you get into this lucrative career. Want to close with one final comment, please. And that comment is this, okay? Think not of yourself as the architect of your career, but as a sculptor. Expect to have to do a lot of hard hammering, chiseling, scraping, and polishing to have a great career in real estate. Thanks for being with us tonight, folks. Appreciate you always, and call if we can be of help individually. Thank you, Dan.
Thanks, Rick. Really appreciate your expertise and your time for this. I'm sure our students do too.